Batman Begins. Dark Knight Rises. A fire will rise. Nerd fire fire will rise.
Coming to you live from the Dark Knight Trilogy.
Batmanathon!
2012. The end of a long journey. What's up, good movie lovers? Jonas and I are here, 6 p.m.
My fire is rising. I'll tell you that right now.
And there is a chair spaced in between us, according to the bro code.
Yes.
So your fire can rise all it wants to. So we are here with a theater packed with Batmaniacs.
That's right. And, I got some coffee, I got soda, water, trail mix, chips. There's no leaving, so one of us got to stay at all times.
That's right.
So I am probably going to have a movie theater dinner, which I haven't had in a while. Good hot dog and candy and nachos. And Coke. And,
a lot of non-biodegradable...
But that's neither here nor there.
We are going to be reviewing all 3 films here. Obviously, we've seen the first 2 before, but you can never get enough Batman Begins and Dark Knight.
You really can't.
And it's a rare opportunity. Not a lot of quality trilogies out there, so that they can do an event like this, much like the Avengers.
And that's something we want to talk about, which is on your pre-read, which you should go see right now. Paul, if you haven't looked at it, it's amazing. The amount of effort that went into this. I know the movie preview critic didn't. He actually has not slept in a week and a half. I think he's on Venom. Actually what's been the energy.
I actually discovered a Venom-like substance, and every time I got tired and slowed down the editing, just pressed the button and just got jacked up again.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah, well over 60 hours of a movie passion.
And it's
to
awesome.
Bring that to
it's
life.
awesome. But anyway, so we're talking about trilogies and why it's so difficult to create a really good trilogy that really works first, second, and third. And the ones we talked about, that there's so many that don't work. It's so hard to find the ones that do. The ones that do: Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return. And Return is a case of diminishing returns.
Yeah, I love the whole on the Death Star with Luke, the Emperor, and Darth Vader.
Yes.
That's my favorite part of the whole movie.
And you made a great point about how it works because it is an emotionally satisfying climax. There's a reason for it to exist in the realm of the characters.
The Ewoks kind of unbalance it a little bit. It's fun. I saw that movie when
at the age you would appreciate Ewoks.
And it was like the Ewoks were the best thing.
Yeah, but
now, I think like all 3, the space battle, the father, and then the Ewoks, it kind of blends well enough, but it might be a little bit too much sugar in that one versus the other one.
But in terms of Back to the Future 1, 2, 3, again, that's kind of a very lighthearted example, but because they're all enjoyable. They're all enjoyable.
I think Back to the Future is a good one. I wonder if the third one gets a little bit of flack because it's a Western.
Yeah. Well, it's silly.
It's a silly Western, but I think it's really tight structure-wise. Everything ties in together.
I haven't seen that in probably 10 or 15 years at least.
Yeah.
I just remember someone did the cut of him, Doc, and Marty to Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, God.
That was hilarious. That was awesome. That was really funny.
That's perfect. Well, and I think that was one of the first part 2 and 3 films that were filmed together.
That's right. Yeah, that was the first time that happened.
Okay.
And it's interesting so we look at then all the ones that didn't work. And we talk about why they didn't work. What happens between the second and the third? Because a lot of times, especially with the superhero movies, the second one is the best of the franchise.
Right.
Spider-Man 2, I think, is better than Spider-Man, the original. Dark Knight, better than Batman Begins.
Yeah.
X-Men 2 is one of the greatest superheroes of all time, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Terminator 2.
Terminator 2 is wonderful. As good as Terminator is. And
Aliens.
Again, right. As good as Alien is, Aliens is better. Because why that is, I think, is because the first one, you have to establish the rules of your universe, especially with the superhero genre. It has to be the origin story.
Right.
Now, the second one, you've established the rules, you've established the world, then you can play with your characters and give them room to expand. So now it's having to watch them go through the thing of how they all get to be where they are. We get to experience them as they are.
Yeah. Looking at a trilogy almost like screenplay structure, where the first act is the first movie, and it's essentially kind of the setup, let's just establish this character. Then act 2 or movie 2 is going to be, here's some hardcore conflict. And now it's that fun fighting, explore themselves. It's just that part 2 is like that heart of act 2, where it's just all the conflict and it's that joy of just drama. I think part 3s have a problem because it's almost like it's kind of anticlimactic, where now it's coming to the end of a journey, and it's like, how is this character going to end? And a lot of stories, if they're not thought through well enough, they don't have a satisfying conclusion to them. They don't have a satisfying, here's what this character now becomes.
Well, you made a really good point in the preview review, which is that the quote from Christopher Nolan about how, in the supposed world of comic books, where it's this ever-expanding balloon, if you already have an agreed-upon ending, like, you can give it structure.
Right.
I think most movie trilogies were designed to keep the franchise going. But you look at Spider-Man 3, you look at Superman 3, it's not an endpoint in a story structure, it's just another installment in what is hopefully a successful movie franchise.
Yeah. And because of that, there's sort of like this arrested development of the character. It's that you don't let them go to the next step. You kind of suspend them so that they don't move forward because you don't want the story to end.
Right, because you have to suspend them, because otherwise you can't churn out the fourth and the fifth and the sixth one.
Right. Aaron Sorkin said something like TV is just all about kind of repeating the same journey over and over for the characters. It's like they reach a point and now we're just going to watch episode after episode of basically them being the same but just kind of new little mini problems until it gets to the very end of the series where now it's something new. So we've had 2-3 seasons on a TV show of fluffing before you finally get to the finale, the climax of it all.
Lost is a perfect example of that, because in Lost, they just had to keep the thing going, and they really didn't have an endpoint. They didn't have things set up. Like, they were kind of making up as they went along, and they had to keep drawing it out and keep drawing it out and keep drawing out. Right. Someone wrote a really interesting piece a few years ago during the Lost thing. I think it was on AV Club, but how with TV, it would be better to move into a period where you just commit to, like, this is a 4-year project.
Oh, yeah, and that's when Lost really picked up steam, when it's like, we have 30 episodes left. That's all we're doing. I would love TV shows to be like, this is going to be a 40-episode series. That's it.
Yeah, I would jump from creator to creator. I want to see around more creation.
Absolutely.
And again, that was the problem with Battlestar Galactica. As much as I love that show, it just kept going and going and going, and they had to keep creating, kind of making it up as they went along, rather than having a very clear, here's the structure, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3.
It's kind of like after you fall in love with someone and that lust phase is over, and you know that moment's approaching when it's like, when are we going to take it to that marriage or that serious level?
Right.
And you kind of just hold it off and you're just, let's just have fun.
Yeah.
Because that moment's going to come, let's decide right now. And then it's the marriage, then it's the kids. And TV with these shows kind of just holds off these big steps as long as possible to get as many viewers hooked and to just make as much money on the advertising as possible. Now I think movies are kind of learning from comic books, and comic books same way, where a character gets too old so they pass the costume off to a newer character. You have to keep that character going and keep selling issues.
Again, the characters, the DC heroes, have all been in their 30s for the past 50 years. I mean, they don't age. Now, and occasionally you get an outside graphic novel where, like Dark Knight Returns, that acknowledges the aging process. But for the most part, they are in a state of suspended animation. They keep refighting the same battles over and over and over again. And there is some learning and some growth. I'm not a huge hardcore comic book guy, but I know enough about it to know there's been huge arcs with Batman, like, had a kid, and like the whole Bane thing, the Nightfall series, and all that. Like, these things, the Killing Joke, and all these things happened. Barbara Gordon got crippled. Things do happen to the characters.
Right. But it's just kind of like life, where things have to keep happening. You know, it's Jay Leno not wanting to let go of the Tonight Show because once you're off the show, there will be a new host, and you will eventually be forgot. Who remembers Johnny Carson anymore? It's just like this cycle of life where things do come to an end, and when you kind of commercialize something, you really kind of want to suck it dry before you let it go. The really great movies from the 70s, that second golden age, they still ended being vital. They weren't drained and dead. Godfather 2 left us and heart was still beating. Or French Connection, First Exorcist. They were complete stories, not wanting to suck you in the next time, just saying, here's what it is.
And their world was still going on. Like, they didn't envision Exorcist 2 when they made Exorcist.
Right.
That's a really good point.
It was later that, this was a huge box office hit. Let's go back because people will come back and pay.
Right, and now that's all planned ahead of time.
Yeah.
They say, okay, we're going to make Pirates of the Caribbean 1 through 8. Like,
now it's superstructure.
Right.
Now it's just
and the Marvel Universe and the Avengers and whatnot. Another warning sign with trilogies, for the most part, is when the first two are usually the vision of a core director, and then it changes hands for the third one. So
we're not going to talk too much
about Red
Ratner,
but that is an example. Superman is an example, whereas Superman 3, which bonus points to anyone that can name the director of Superman 3, it's Richard Lester. He is the main director of Superman 2, because that was actually Richard Donner's movie.
Okay.
It got taken away from him. Basically, everything cool about Superman 2 is Richard Donner. Okay. Everything goofy, like the giant super cellophane S that he throws off his chest and wraps itself around the bad guy and sends him into the chasm. that's all Richard Lester. Like, that's all
Because I love Superman too.
Yeah, who doesn't? It's it's wonderful. Him, fighting the bad guys and everything. I find it really interesting. On your pre-read, you forgot about Rise of the Machines, which is how forgettable that movie was.
Terminator Salvation. Oh my God, I totally I can't believe I didn't know what
Rise of the Machines.
Well,
that was the chick that was like,
that was Venom in like 2 hours of sleep, and I just got distracted. Totally caught that.
Totally. You go from a single vision of James Cameron, even Alien, which was 2 separate directors' visions, but very strong visions, and it went to Fincher, who's a strong director we love now. From what I've read about that, how the production with that movie, that was a lot of cooks in that pot. You know what I mean? Like,
that was
a lot
movie
of
by committee and a lot of egos going on. Absolutely, and I think here with The Dark Knight, this is a rare case where you have a quality filmmaker able to, with carte blanche basically, complete his vision how he wants it.
Right, have complete control of the story and the vision, the first, second, and the third. Godfather 3, I just want to bring this as an aside. I really enjoy Godfather 3. I think it gets a lot of flack, unjustifiable, basically because Sofia Coppola is horrible in it. Like, if you put in a decent actress that wasn't so distracting as like such a non-actress as she is, that movie would have gotten a lot better regard in terms of criticism at the time, and also in how we remember it. It's really got a really interesting story structure. The stuff with the Vatican, I think, is really fascinating. The ending, to me, is one of the most tragic endings in cinema. Him in the chair. But then before that, when Sofia Coppola dies on the steps of the opera house, and there's an amazing thing where he's screaming, but there's no sound, and then the sound, I mean, man, it tore me up. Like, that's
some great
real.
filmmaking.
Oh, Godfather 3 spoiler, by the way.
It's one of those movies that had so much to live up to.
Right.
Part 2 was so epic.
It was so epic. It was still a great movie on its own, I think.
It has its merits. I've just kind of included it because it's commonly regarded as a third that doesn't live up to.
So here's the other thing, why I think there's a difference between when a main director holds on to his vision while it gets shuffled out, is because that means the difference between, does the third movie exist for story reasons or for financial reasons? Does it exist because we can just crank it out and get people in the seats?
Beautifully put. Most movies are because of that second reason. It's all that financial reason. This was being advertised as the end of the journey. Like, usually if a studio has some kind of property like this, they don't want to say like, hey, this is going to be the last one.
And good. I would hate to see Batman 4 in the hands of a, say,
Brett Ratner.
Just for instance. Well, we got that again. Batman 1 and 2, the Tim Burton movies, then got shuffled off to Joel Schumacher.
Burton didn't have any notions of wanting to tell some grand thematic journey story.
That's true also, but and I don't think Bryan Singer did either, though. But again, Bryan Singer had such a strong vision for what he was doing with each movie.
Right, and he was respectful to the comics. He took kind of the good elements of it and tried to make it dramatic because he had that awesome dramatic background. Right. Those elements always come together well, and I think that bringing up the great point of that third movie, that studio, seems that it's kind of forcing it into existence. Right. The second one, a lot of these are motivated. Aliens happens because, let's try it. James Cameron did Terminator, so let's give him a shot. And it just maybe stroke of luck, but thankfully, guy kind of in his prime, story prime, makes a really great movie and rejuvenates the franchise even more. When's the last time you've seen Batman Begins?
A while. It's been a long while since I saw Batman Begins.
I watch like the first 45 minutes of this movie maybe once a month. I love this origin story. I love how the whole editing, cross-cutting the past with the present when he's telling Ra's al Ghul kind of how he got to where he is. So we see him as a little kid, then he's in whatever land learning from him. And just the score by Hans Zimmer, so revolutionary at the time, 2005, just really kind of set off this new pace of, I don't know what you would call that, but just the heartbeat of the score and the epic nature of it. It's really powerful.
You mentioned that score doesn't get talked enough about in movies and what they bring to movies. Hans Zimmer, right?
Zimmer. Did I say Hans Gruber?
Yeah, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Because there's only one
There's only one Hans.
And he's the enemy of John McClane.
Mr. Zimmer is what we'll refer to him from now on.
And James Newton Howard. Okay. It's two composers working together, which like you rarely see. And Newton Howard's a pretty respectable. He's got some skills.
Well, and his signature, he is so strong. And there have been so many great, really great people that score movies that have been as much a part of the movie as the character themselves. John Williams, definitely. Ennio Morricone, definitely.
Yeah. James Horner, I'm a huge fan of. Braveheart, Alien, Star Trek 2.
Yeah. To a lesser extent, Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman?
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's already started.
Here we go.
All right, a review coming after. All right, Batman Begins. Just finished. What's the word? How do you feel?
I was like, everyone's seen this and everyone loves it. But here's something I want to bring up. Because there are plot elements you can get nitpicky with.
Right.
I mean, there's stuff like, it's kind of ridiculous that like he's doing the tumbler all over the place and no one gets hurt.
Yeah.
That when he destroys the entire train system, that nothing falls on him. You know what I mean? Like he's a reckless disregard. And this happens in Dark Knight too, where he's just blowing up cars left and right. You know what I mean? So like the cop, he has like the little landmines. The cop cars all flip. Like cop could very easily get killed. So these are all these things
Look,
that
if you are a ninja,
right,
you can control everything.
Right. Here's my point though, is that these are all things that we could be very nitpicky about.
Yeah.
The reason why I would say I'm willing to overlook this in this movie, and I'd probably be pulling it out and holding it up with a magnifying glass in another type of movie,
right,
is because at least the characters behave real.
Yeah.
That's the difference, is that I'm willing to overlook certain plot contrivances in terms of, so when the train collapsed, someone might get hurt. In the real world, quote unquote.
Right.
You know, those kind of things. And whereas another movie, I'd be sitting there probably like adding that to the list of things I'm complaining about.
Yeah.
I'm willing to overlook that here because everyone in the movie behaves like a person behaves in real life.
Absolutely.
That's the difference.
The first half's a little bit tighter than the second half.
I would agree with that, definitely.
I can't really pick the exact moment, but it kind of feels like once Scarecrow gets involved, the threads aren't as finely tight.
Once the idea of the Narrows gets introduced, I think as a whole, that whole element.
Yeah. Does it bother you at all that the Narrows aren't in The Dark Knight at all? The city keeps redesigning itself. Like, I kind of wish there was the Wayne Tower. I kind of wish I understand that Gotham might be meant to be this monolithic just metropolis that's just so massive you could spend 5 movies in the different areas and never really get a sense of what it is.
Yeah.
Almost feels like that the Wayne Tower should always kind of be somewhere in there. I don't know.
It just doesn't bother me as much. Like I guess with Dark Knight, it's like he does kind of like reinvent the city a little bit. Like he comes back to it, he's like, okay, that's what we did with that movie, but like, you know what, that's not going to work for what I want to do anymore.
Yeah.
And so rather than be beholden to it, he just chooses to...
I guess also in the Rises, it's going to get another revamp and it won't look exactly the same either.
Right. Because I can understand that though, because when you're creating something, if you force yourself to be beholden to that and that continuity, it really limits what you can do.
Yeah.
So again, that's the kind of thing you could get very nitpicky about, but you kind of like, depending on the movie and how they're structuring it, you either overlook or you don't. And I think it'd be silly to pull that out.
You want to have the creative freedom to go into new territory.
I mean, in comic books, they do that. They're revamping the continuity all the time. There's always new universes and alternate universes and Earth 2s and Earth 8s and whatnot.
Right.
Superboy's in one and Superman's the other and Superman 2, and then you've got, all this.
Now, let me ask you, does Christopher Nolan have a signature style?
I think very much so. Chicago just got its shout out.
Chicago getting mad props.
That's right.
There was a Scorsese style to a movie making. Spielberg has his touch. Kubrick. So Christopher Nolan, and we get the Batman Begins sign at the end. How do you know you're watching a Christopher Nolan movie?
For Hans Zimmer score, well, I did nowadays. Everything he does is shot dark. I was watching Insomnia the other day.
Okay.
It's all daylight all the time.
Right.
It's still like a lot happens in gray and shadow. It's still dark in a certain respect.
Yeah.
Memento, even though it's all out of its daylight, it's just that the cinematography he uses. I don't know. It's
I
like,
don't know. It's.
Do you know what I mean, though?
It's not grimy. It's
but
it's like almost like on the edge of sanity somehow. Like there's this weird, like a Twilight kind of like weird feeling to it. Yeah.
There's always a sweeping scope shot, which is in every movie. All the fight scenes, it's not shaky cam because the camera doesn't move.
Yeah.
The motion happens so quick. You're really only getting an idea of the action.
Right, and it's almost too close.
It's very close.
I get here because it's Batman's supposed to be disorienting to his opponents.
Right.
So I guess the camera work makes you feel like you don't know where you're being hit. So the Matrix kind of gets off on showing you the great fight choreography.
Well, but
and
that's
that
also
style.
in slow-mo a lot of times and bullet time. So it's a different idea.
Yeah. So here I think it's much more Batman kind of comes at you, hits you with an elbow. You don't know what's going on. So it is supposed to be blurry.
I think it really does mirror that. It's like you're never sure exactly what's happening because if Batman was kicking your ass, you wouldn't know what the hell's going on. Like, and I love the way in the beginning, the first scene with the docks, where people are just like vanishing left and right. I think that's really cool.
I love how the end really leads into the whole second film. Of course, we get the Joker tie-in.
Right.
But then Gordon even kind of mentions what Nolan considered his theme for the next one, which was escalation.
Right.
You get a gun, bulletproof vest.
That's touched on also in Dark Knight Returns, where they talk about how Batman is kind of responsible in a lot of ways for the super criminal element.
He's like attracting those
Yeah,
criminals.
there wasn't people running around with masks on and being ridiculous until he started doing that. There were just gangsters before then.
For a while, I've been kind of just thinking this, and I want to just state it. I'm a fan of Katie Holmes in this film.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
I like her character. I think she portrayed Rachel better than Maggie Gyllenhaal
What?
did in the second film.
Okay, stop.
Rachel here is very much same as Alfred. She's that kind of conscience for Bruce. She's almost a little bit too wise beyond her years because everything she says is kind of like this wisdom. But I feel like she's there to kind of bring up to Bruce, keep him in check with. It's not about revenge. It's about justice. And at the end, she says, now this is the mask. And I like the way she portrayed her. And unfortunately, the Tom Cruise stuff happened and she got a bad rap. And that's probably why she wasn't in the second film.
What you like here is the writing of her.
The writing of her.
Katie Holmes, I think, is just, she's horribly miscast in this. She's too damn cute to buy as tough as nails. You know what I mean?
She's still coming off the Dawson's Creek.
She's Dawson Creek. She always will be to me.
But
She's just such a sweet. She's like the baby face. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know if Maggie Gyllenhaal did any better, or if she wasn't. I don't know if that character was written as well in the second film, because the only thing in the second film she really offers is we can't be together.
That's true. She's not as much his conscious in that one.
Here she's written as more of an ass kicker. Like, I want to go off and fight. I want to do this. I totally do see that. Looking at her, like, it does seem.
It's so incongruous. Like, watching those words come out of her mouth.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense, yes. Especially earlier and later on when I guess they dress her up as 7 years later, she kind of is supposed to be older, but I can see the visual contrasting the spirit of the writing. Yeah, I think that I like her character better here than I do in The Dark Knight.
Okay.
And I don't know, people here laughed when she slapped him. That was kind of weird.
That was weird to me too, because to me that is a really effective emotional moment, and it's like they're best friends from childhood. And when she says, it kills in that line, "Your father would be ashamed of you." I mean, that's like,
that was powerful.
That's powerful to me,
and it got a lot of laughs.
Yeah, I mean, maybe people just weren't because it's Katie Holmes.
Maybe her.
You know what I mean?
Doing it.
Like, especially now as she's viewed now, and she brings so much public baggage to her roles now, even in retrospect. For people that haven't seen Batman Begins in a while.
But the score, we kind of cut off going into the movie talking about the score, and you were rocking out to the score the whole movie.
Well, I think the Dark Knight score is just so unbelievable. Yeah. Like, I almost wanted to buy it and just have it playing in my everywhere I went for a week, just playing constantly in the background and looking like a badass just running around.
Just that sweeping dun dun. It's just so powerful. It really works. Is this the beginning? I know Liam Neeson.
I had that same thought.
Okay, go for it.
Because he was a Jedi. But he was kind of whatever. And this is the beginning of Liam Neeson as badass.
This is badass Liam Neeson.
Yeah, this is not just Batman Begins. This is Liam Begins.
This is Liam Neeson. This is
Neeson Begins. I have a set of skills.
Well, you know what? When he's like, my wife was taken, and supposedly the second film. The second film focuses on his wife being kidnapped. Taken 2 is the origin story for Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
And then somewhere the gray happens in there.
Right, somewhere the gray.
He has to fight wolves or whatever.
Yeah, makes sense. So if they ever made a live-action Dark Knight Returns, who else could play him but
Liam Neeson?
That's right.
Did John talk to you about this?
He mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah, so our buddy John, his proposal is that Dark Knight Returns, directed by Guillermo del Toro, starring Liam Neeson, written by Frank Miller.
That's a pretty solid lineup, because they have the fantasy element. Yeah, because Dark Knight does stretch into the fantasy elements of comic books. Like, there definitely is super heroic things going on. There's Superman, and there's those weird doll bombs that are alive somehow, and anyway.
So as a start to the trilogy, this thing pretty much establishes it.
It grounds you in the world, it grounds you in character, and it leaves you wanting. You just can't wait for more.
So it's for Bruce as he's leaving this one. It's almost like everyone's giving him the kind of approval of, okay, what you're doing is good at this point. It's turning things around, and we support you. Even Rachel at the end's like, okay, finish your stuff up, and we'll get together. And now, as we're going to see in The Dark Knight, the Joker shows up, and he's going to push him in ways that,
He's going to rattle some cages.
He's going to rattle some cages. The one thing to really consider here, this movie made about $350 million worldwide, and then The Dark Knight made $1 billion.
Right.
Was it this being so good and then having a couple years, 3 years for the fan base to be excited about another one, or was it the Joker, Heath Ledger as the Joker, that really made up that $700 million of extra interest?
I think it was a combination of all those elements. Plus, I think The Dark Knight is a better movie. It's just top to bottom is that this is a bad movie.
The excitement of it. I mean, even before it came out.
When this one came out, though, there was such a bad taste in everyone's mouth the Batman franchise from Schumacher from years ago, and no one had, like, in terms of superhero movies, what was coming out at that time? You had the original X-Men, right?
Spider-Man.
You had the original Spider-Man. You had the Fantastic Four, which blew, which sucked ass.
So it was the comic book craze was just like first 3-4 years into
Exactly. These were the first volleys into the golden era of superhero movies that we're in now.
Christopher Nolan was untested as like a bigger
he had done
director.
Following, Memento, and Insomnia, and that's all he had done.
Everyone had been burned before believing that, another Batman could be good, so it was kind of like, well, we're not sure this could happen.
Yeah, but then this was so good. Now that anyone was so intense and excited about Dark Knight. And I'm like, I saw it twice in the theaters. In your pre-read, talk about how the movie is only as good as its villain, and how the villain shows a lot about the character. When this movie came out, it's like, well, who are the villains? Like, people, knowing that people had ever heard of. Like, Scarecrow is a very minor character. Carmine Falcone, who's just a mobster. And then this Ra's al Ghul guy that no one knows. The people and normal people haven't really heard of. Which I think is great, by the way, when he's at the party. You have to meet Ra's al Ghul. It's like, I saw you die. And then the woman's like, oh, okay, whatever. Come on, let's go over here. Like, she doesn't, you know what I mean? And Liam Neeson shows up behind him. It's like, okay, let's just go over here now. It'd be a weird thing if you were at that party and that happens,
From a filmmaking point of view, that must have been a tough pitch. I'm going to make a new Batman and no major well-known...
Right, no Joker, no Catwoman, no Penguin, no Two-Face, no any of those. But we're using Ra's al Ghul, Scarecrow, and a mobster. But here's the thing, though. The guy that played Carmine Falcone, he played him so well. He's written so well. Tom Wilkinson, he's great
actor.
He's so
like
fun in
every
this.
line, he's like, you always fear what you don't understand.
Yeah.
And what was the great line?
Oh, I can't, the walls are closing in. I can't take it anymore. Please. Oh my God. Oh no.
And don't concern yourself with the secrets of scary people.
Yeah.
It's such a,
He's so great. Every line, he's chewing it up, but he's delivering it so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, the dialogue in this is so great. Like, it's written so well from a writer's perspective. Like, the jokes hit.
Yes.
Like, the moments of levity, even though they get a little heavy with the car jokes, I always felt. Michael Caine's awesome in this.
Yeah.
He's so funny. Morgan Freeman's awesome in this. So many great little lines.
And it's almost like Christopher Nolan testing out his blockbuster movie set piece delivery sensibility. Okay, this is the part when they expect a cool one-liner, nice coat.
Yeah.
Or this is the part when the Batmobile should jump out of the Batcave. So it's like he's kind of getting a feel for this is how I film classic big screen
action blockbuster movie.
As we're watching, we're not consciously saying, oh, this is what should happen. But once it happens, we're like, that's what should happen.
Right.
And he's really hitting the marks here.
I also forgot how great Cillian Murphy is in this. He's so creepy. It's the Batman. He's just gross. Like, he's a creepy dude.
The one kind of feel like him getting tased by Katie Holmes is kind of a cheat.
And then he just falls on, he's taken away. And it's just, that really is a very poor comeuppance for him. And he's good enough villain that he's more deserving of better.
And because this film deals with fear, it seems like he'd be a more natural opponent for Batman because he uses fear to control people.
And that's what, in the comic books, that's why he's such a great element. He is always great in those stories.
Yeah. And I always wish that he would have been used better in The Dark Knight because the Joker escaped from Arkham, so wouldn't Scarecrow know who the inmates were?
Is that ever clarified, the Joker escaped from Arkham?
I've always thought of it like the Joker was one of the people they let loose.
Oh, okay.
And it would have been cool in an alternate version of a script if somehow the Scarecrow would have been worked in. And finding the identity of the Joker was not what Dark Knight was about.
Right.
Could have been an interesting element.
Because it didn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
That's
matter.
the whole point with the Joker.
Because,
that doesn't
again,
matter who he is.
Scarecrow gets the shaft at the beginning. It's, he shows up for 2 minutes. We capture him. And
Totally.
Then,
it's just like they waste. I don't know. He deserves better. He is a good villain.
He is, yeah. And the way that Cillian Murphy played him really established him as someone who could really be
Lesson, by the way, if anyone says, do you want to see my mask? Run. Just go. Just run. Nothing good can come of that.
Well, it all depends what kind of, kicks you're in.
Wow, NPC. Whoa. Back it up.
Back it up. I have been going sleep deprived for the last 2 days doing all the editing and everything. Supposedly, the Scarecrow might make appearance in Rises because they're releasing the prisoners again.
One thing that hooked me in, which I didn't even, because I never thought about because I haven't seen this in so long, was with the very beginning, they're describing the Batmobile, how it's originally designed to make bridges, basically.
Yeah.
And how we know from the preview, all the bridges are blown, so maybe that's part of it.
And Nolan's always good about each sequel supersizes the set pieces and the toys. If there's one tumbler here, there might be 10 in the next one, or bigger Batcave, all that kind of stuff. It really influenced everything that came after. We got Liam Begins, we've got the score, we've got dark tones for superhero movies.
Well, again, and this was one of the first movies, superhero movies, that was really dark, like, in Dark Knight, darker, in terms of theme and in terms of what happens to the characters.
Yeah.
Because you think about, again, when it comes to Spider-Man, it was very lighthearted, very comic booky. I guess the original Batman and Batman Burton's they were still very comic booky. You know what I mean? They weren't dark in theme. They were dark in
like
imagery.
A little more,
a little
imagery, right?
Fantastic Four was goofy as all hell. X-Men, I wouldn't call it dark.
The Punisher might be the darkest of all the ones. They weren't really good movies.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be interesting, too, if in Rises. I mean, that's going to be his ultimate test. Yeah. Will he kill Bane? That's the thing, if it comes down to it, because that's what separates him from the criminal.
Is he willing to break his rule? Because here he kind of does.
He kind of does.
I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. So we have to ask where Batman is at the end of The Dark Knight, and how Bane, just like the Scarecrow would have been a reflection of Batman's fear, the Joker is a reflection of Batman's kind of split psyche. Now, what is Bane a reflection of for Batman in the third
And
film?
you talked in your pre-read about how the villain serves as a mirror, like the shadow self of the hero. We've got three things going on here. We've got fear of the Scarecrow, corruption versus justice, the difference between justice and vengeance. Three different things going on, but all touched on very well, I thought. As long as we're talking just theme and archetypes and all that good stuff. That scene when he's in the cave and the bats and he stands up.
Oh man.
Oh, just
like it gives me chills.
Me too.
Like
it gives
a good
me
kind of
chills. Goosebumps.
Like, everything comes together at that moment.
Oh, because I mean, man, if you want to get Joseph Campbell on, or even Nietzsche, man must descend into the darkness because that's where he meets himself, and he comes out the other side as something more.
Jonas,
Batman,
everyone,
baby.
right here,
Batman.
right here. Available at Bit City. Serenity Now Meditation. Zen in the Art of Waitering. This is just normal conversation. Just imagine when this man is prepared and focused beforehand.
Me? You're the one talking about Viktor Frankl in your pre-reads. Come on. Anyway, that's enough.
Okay, so.
Other off. So, it's almost time. We got 5 minutes till Dark Knight.
Hi. What I'm here for is I'm going to do a little bit of trivia to give you a couple fun prizes out before the movie. I will also do another trivia round after the next film. Remember to be back in your theater about 10-15 minutes before the next film to do some more trivia. Okay. First prize I have.
It's always Batman. Is it Jesus?
I only have one Batman prize for each theater for now, but it's a special edition Dark Knight Rises decal that they sent us. They are special edition. All right, first question is, Christopher Nolan has worked with Michael Caine for 5 movies in a row. Can you name all 5?
Yeah.
Right there.
All right, I'm going to say Prestige. You got Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, and, oh shit, it is Inception.
There you go. All right, see you later.
All right, Dark Knight just cut off the quiz girl. All right, here we go.
Time to go.
Just finished The Dark Knight.
Yep.
When was the last time you've seen this?
A few months ago. I hadn't seen it for a while because when it came out on DVD, I watched it like every night for about a month and a half straight, watching the Joker scenes over and over. And
amazing character.
It's kind of silly to even be doing this right now because it's been so picked over. And people have picked out like the plot holes and stuff. Yes, the plan is, so wait, Gordon fakes his death and who knows about it, but they don't. And then they capture the Joker, but the Joker really want to get caught the entire time. It's just kind of nonsensical and ludicrous.
It's very...
Rube Goldbergian almost.
Yeah,
like the things that
Joker
come
is
together.
very much the Jigsaw character meets John Doe from Seven.
Yeah.
Batman has to dig out the bullet, get the fingerprint, and the fingerprint leads him to the room where the cops are tied up. And then the timer goes off. You buy it because it's just so much fun.
Exactly. And why is it so much fun? Because of the characters, because of the performances, because of the writing. Heath Ledger's Joker is one of those characters where every time he's on screen, you cannot look away. Just he's so magnetic, and everything about the performance, like the lip smacking and the weird shuffle gait, and
and just this little mannerisms and just the little things that he says. It's amazing.
The emphasis on the words,
the way that he stresses them.
Like everyone loves him. But there's this one scene where we watched that video he shot of him holding the fat guy that's just as Batman hostage, and everyone was kind of like laughing a little bit, and then he does that really scary look at me, like that really which if you've ever seen Manhunter, the original Michael Mann Red Dragon, or the inferior Brett Ratner remake, right? But that's the villain of that has this thing where he has like this evil side of him that talks in this other voice.
It's almost like every out of the 3 characters, they each had a moment to express that. Batman, when Joker's like, you have nothing to threaten me.
Nothing.
And he goes, where is she? He lets it out.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, Harvey, as when he's in Two-Face mode, he has like a devil kind of, and I never noticed that until now, and you
That's
brought
a
it up
good
right
point.
now.
That's a really good
But I remember
point.
watching that the first time.
It sounds like evil, like
Yeah.
pure evil.
Yeah.
And you could feel it in the audience when
Yeah.
everyone was like, holy shit. There was this silence because it was scary. The Joker went from being fun to being legitimately scary.
Every time he tells a different story about how he got the scars. A lot of times, I think when people say The Dark Knight is such an amazing movie, they're saying the Joker is such an amazing character. He steals the show beyond everything. It's just,
completely. Every
Yeah.
scene, which is so sad at the end of watching it, when he's dangling, saying, "We're destined to do this forever," because you can't help but thinking what might have been. And I know that because way back when, people remember that like Johnny Depp was saying he would like to take over the role, or Daniel Day-Lewis was saying that he would play the role, just because as actors they were so bowled over by what they had seen, Nolan went a different route.
I think this movie does everything in terms of forwarding the trilogy, the whole theme that we're talking about here, where it pushes every character unpredictable.
They killed Rachel.
dying.
No, I mean that's huge. Everyone's talked about how it is kind of rushed. They kind of jam Harvey, like Two-Face in, and they kind of waste the villain a little bit, and his motivations seem rushed. The problem for me, like it's not even clear that he died at the end, really, because the fall didn't seem that bad.
Yeah.
And the whole movie, they're really playing fast and loose with the physics of the universe and like what kind of falls can hurt you and not.
Right.
But it is badass when Batman lands on the car and the beginning just crushes it. That's great. But then him and Rachel fall from the penthouse.
But his cape kind of opens up a little bit. So
But
that's
then
enough.
they fall from like, where were they? Like five stories up? It didn't like they were up any height at all.
Yeah.
But it killed Harvey.
And then that also means Batman killed someone, but it was to save a little kid. So
Yeah.
maybe there's a rule for that. And I forgot how fast this movie moved. The first 30 minutes of like getting the guy back. It was funny you were making these motions as we asked if Christopher Nolan has a style, and it seems like it's epic sweeping shots.
Epic sweeping shots is the style.
Huge booming score.
Yep. All of it's shot in the IMAX cameras. So when you're watching in the IMAX theater, which we're not, unfortunately, that was not offered in Chicago in the IMAX presentation. But
I think that sweeping shot when he jumps off the building, he flies, and then he crashes through that's one of my favorite shots. It's so cool, and then he does the barrel roll.
the other cliche, at least Batman is always standing on something high.
The rotating camera shot.
Rotating camera shot.
There are a
around
couple
him.
of Michael Bay-ish shots here, the camera circling them
I noticed
talking.
that when they were talking. You know what I never noticed was how the Joker is wearing the Harvey Dent like political sticker.
Just that little details. Like, and it was funny. I remember seeing this for the first time in the theater, and watching it now, still gets the reactions in the same part, same laughs. When Joker does the pencil trick, same exact. Couldn't believe what was going on.
And I've seen it how many times, and every time it gets me. Again, it's been a little while since I saw it last, but still. That's why Joker's so dangerous, because he's just chaos. You cannot reason with him. You cannot buy him. He's just an agent of chaos.
I don't know what it is with movies nowadays, especially recent last 2 or 3 years. Characters don't speak what they're about, their meanings anymore, but here they're doing it all the time, where Joker's saying, I don't believe in any rules, I'm an agent of chaos. Batman says, I'm not going to cross these lines.
But it's not like it's not like in an exposition way, though. It's not a way that feels unnatural. It comes out of the character. And I will say this, the problem with the Batman voice is that it doesn't really work when he's trying to explain thought out ideas.
It made him
like the people of Gotham just showed you that they will not sink to your level and who they truly are. And furthermore, it doesn't.
For a score.
And 7 years ago. It doesn't work so much.
The whole thing, I love the voice in Begin. I thought that the way that he had the Batman voice was fine.
So one thing I did want to bring up was how awesome the interrogation scene is, and just why Joker is so dangerous. As he says, you have nothing to threaten me with. This idea of the whole movie being this metaphor for the war on terror, and so hard to see where Nolan's coming down on it, whether he's in favor of the kind of fascist response. As Harvey says, the whole thing about how the Romans would suspend democracy and appoint one man. Rachel comes with, and then he took over and never gave back the powers. Batman's the hero, and he's using this technology, but Joker's always saying, like, push people far enough to see where they're going, all the rules. He's got the whole thing, the whole speech he gives to Harvey about people, they have these codes. It's a bad joke.
But the minute agreement of civility breaks down, it's all everyone for themselves.
Is that an indictment of us as American citizens? Like, the minute we're pushed, how quick we are to toss away what we say is important to us.
And I guess there's a sign of hope here, because the two boats both choose not to push the button. They're bombs. So Batman, again in his voice,
the people of Gotham just showed you.
We kind of get the lesson there. And in interviews, Nolan or the writers, they say it's not really an issue. They say they're not trying to really bring it up too much, but it's like an obvious thing.
Well, he's clearly a terrorist.
And I think that's what makes all these movies so rich, is that there's these multiple levels of all this in there. can really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Joker is a terrorist. Joker as a terrorist. That's a brilliant idea. More than just cool makeup or just a weird take on the guy. It's like that's what's motivating.
Not to get too heavy into it, but it's like it's not rational. He can't be reasoned with in the same way that the United States can't reason with religious extremists because it's not rational. There is no like dealing with them. There is no politicking.
And then it was almost like Joker, let's say, infected Harvey Dent. And at the end, I mean, everyone's making a rational argument with Harvey, but he's so far gone that just forget about it. He reminds me a lot of the Christopher Walken character in Deer Hunter.
Okay.
Where he just gets so shell-shocked and he's just playing the game of Russian roulette. That's the only thing he knows. Everything's flip the coin. What am I going to get at McDonald's? Flip the coin, you know? Like
heads, supersize. Not so lucky.
Tails, apple pie.
French fries!
I kind of wish that Nolan would have went more realistic with the makeup on.
What? Oh no! I thought that was totally realistic.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's CGI though, right?
I don't know. Is
it's
it?
His face, the eyeball and stuff. It seems very CGI'd on that.
Really, didn't. For me, it looked totally real. Like that guy, that was like a dude with a face burnt off. Is what that would look like. It was, and like the bone poking through. Speaking of CGI, though, how awesome is it that when he flips that truck, all the stuff with it is all real deal, and you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
The audience, even though we've all seen this movie, that when that truck flips on the big screen, man,
people clapping. I'm always a joy when there's this spontaneous clapping. Even though let's say this is a fanboy heavy audience right now, there's still appreciation for when great things happen on screen, and it's awesome in films when that happens. That happens when you be a part of that. Nolan's very much about that whole let's spend the extra money and just get stuntmen to do the stuff, or let's really build the sets. That's why Rises cost over $200 or something. So now going in Rises, we're a couple minutes away. It's been 4 years. What are you looking for? What's going to make this a satisfying movie for you?
It's going to come down to Bane. It's going to come down to how engaging he is as a villain. Because you know what? To be honest, I don't know what to expect. And I've been trying to go into this with as little knowledge of it as possible. Like I know a little bit about the Nightfall saga. You know, I know in that, if I'm not mistaken, he releases all like the super villains. Batman has to deal with them all, like Poison Ivy and Mad Hatter and the Ventriloquist, all them one at a time before he finally gets to Bane.
Which I feel like if they were a more commercialized in their vision, they would have made 20 separate superhero movies all leading up to the Nightfall saga. Who knows? They'll reboot it and they'll do it anyways.
Yeah.
But Nolan's kind of been like, no, this is what we're going to do. Have just the influences of that stuff in here. It seems like it should probably address some of the issues addressed in Batman Begins and that have been going through the series, kind of make it come full circle. If you look at Batman Begins as an Act 1, what was established there, just like the sonar on Lucius's phone becomes the bigger things. Maybe some of the ideas, League of Shadows or something, might
the
show
question,
up.
the difference between the man and the myth. It's another thing, is League of Shadows going to show up? That's why I was kind of wondering, is the Bane an agent of League of Shadows, this kind of thing, raising Gotham and that kind of thing? You
know, Bruce Wayne Batman, if this is a closed universe where there's not issue number 4 coming, what kind of end do you see for Batman? Does he continue being Batman? Does he retire? Does he die?
That's a good question. And that's the interesting thing about in a kind of separate universe that Nolan's created, which is a standalone, if you want to get even comic book geeky, it's a different Earth. You know, it's a different universe. It's an alternate, it's like Earth 5 or whatever. Yeah, what happens in this? Does Batman die? Does the mantle get passed? Do they not need a Batman anymore? I think you brought up the idea of, does Bruce Wayne become the figure? Being Batman, he's revealed as Bruce Wayne, but Bruce Wayne becomes the legend.
And I guess if Nolan's thinking pain, if this is the theme for him is pain equals you got to go through some pain in order to become something else, right? That's the only way to grow.
It is through the room that the light enters. To quote Rumi.
Jonas, everyone. Again, not written down, not pre-planned. Sitting in the movie theater watching superhero movies, Rumi comes out. I love it.
Suffering is how characters grow. And
now Bruce has to go through the final suffering. If this has been his ultimate plan, one of his goals is, hey, I want to take Batman and redeem the city. What is it really going to take? Maybe something has to be destroyed before something can be born again. 2 hours, 45 minutes, man. They're not sparing any time on this thing.
Hey, you know what? Well, worth it, though.
Beyond epic, you know?
You know what? It's getting close to showtime. I'm thinking if you want to do the...
Should I give it a shot?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Okay.
Attention for 1 second. We're doing a movie review for themoviepreviewcritic.com, and our tagline is "Long live good movies." And we would love it if an audience filled with good movie lovers would just cheer it out on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Long live good movies! You guys rock.
Thank you very much.
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kevin. Happy birthday to you.
Hey.
Woo!
Alright, so I've got some prizes to give out to you guys in this theater, and we're going to try and get through this quickly so you guys can finish enjoying The Dark Knight Rises.
There you go.
Alright, now remember, raise your hands, don't shout out, because if you shout it, I have no idea who said it. So make sure you raise your hand the next round before you shout out that answer and give it to someone else. Alright. Christopher Nolan has one-word themes for each of the Batman films. Can you name them?
Fear, chaos, and pain.
Alright.
That's some pain. Nice. Boom.
That works.
What was the code name given as a film title for The Dark Knight during production
Well, don't give him a chance. You already got something.
and Trespassers in Chicago in 2007?
Roy's first kiss.
I told you guys, I'm not going to be able to see who raised their hand first.
Oh my god.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, something, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the code name for Dark Knight Rises too. You know the code name?
How many times is Hans Zimmer's Batman theme heard in The Dark Knight? Up there at the top.
5.
No.
3.
Nope.
8.
Nope. Right there?
4.
No. Right there?
2.
Yes, that's
Damn.
Alright guys, I got one more prize for you. Another t-shirt. Okay. In 2007, The Dark Knight held the box office record for the largest opening weekend of all time, 158.4 million. What other two titles have since broken that record? Right up there. No. And it's two titles, guys. Right there.
Avengers and Harry Potter.
Yes, that's correct.
What is the next potential franchise where such excitement's going to happen for a...
You have to have characters you care about. You know, this kind of shit doesn't happen in the Transformers movies. It has to be a story you care about, because why do we give a shit? Because we've grown with these characters. We've watched these characters grow. We've gone through things with them.
Right.
In good storytelling, you go through something with the characters. You don't just watch shit happens. I think one of the main differences between good storytelling and then shit blowing up real good is instead of things just being spoon-fed to me, I'm just sitting here watching things happen.
Right.
In good storytelling, I am going along with the characters in a journey.
Yeah.
I'm being taken along for that. There is no journey with Shia LaBeouf. Here we go. Talk to you in 3 hours.
See you in 3 hours. All right, the credits are rolling on The Dark Knight Rises.
Just everyone, talk about fan reaction. People are just applauding, standing ovation.
That was a solid 30 seconds of just pure appreciation.
Again, something you probably didn't see at Transformers 3. You know?
When Shia LaBeouf told the Victoria's Secret
Whichever
model
one she was.
that he'll do whatever it takes to keep her, that was inspiring.
Yeah. We go into these things like trying not to have the ridiculous expectations that you have coming into it, because Dark Knight was such a wonderful movie, and this was not as good as Dark Knight. It wasn't. I don't want to say, I can't tell if it was better or worse than Batman Begins. It was good.
Okay.
This was a good movie. Like, first reactions, like B+. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't like blow me out of the water.
It is dangerous to say anything but 100% masterpiece.
Right, because it's not a perfect movie. It succeeds in doing so much of it wants to do, and it has
Tried to do a lot.
The question is right now, like, how emotionally effective was it? beyond just spectacle. But it was.
I will say 2 hours and 45 minutes went by really quick. They gave a time constraint. Really? There's only that much time left?
Yeah.
And it flew by.
It totally flew by. It's not a moment that was dragging the entire movie.
Yeah.
The first act took a little while to get going.
It did open up a little bit slow because we do spoiler reviews. So let's right now, overall...
Oh, come on. You know they're going to go
it's worthy big screen viewing.
I'm going to go see it again in IMAX.
I would definitely want to check it in IMAX. Nolan brings the big scope, classic shots. We've just watched three movies of the sweeping shots. And then... Dun, 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 dun. Here we got some cheers coming up. And that was the Dark Knight Rises title at the end.
Yeah, they were applauded.
You have to see it in the theater. I mean, come on. What rating is there to give? You know you're going to see it. We're recommending you see it. Now we're going to have a very spoiler-filled discussion. We've been in these seats since... Okay, if the movie started at 6, and it's 3 right now, that's 9 hours.
9 hours.
Plus
seats,
waiting before. You've been here longer than I have.
Yeah,
So.
and well worth it. Well worth it.
And by watching the trilogy, you get the sense of how everything came together.
Yeah.
And they did, obviously pay attention to the earlier movies and all that.
It would almost be like this one would have been more effective if I hadn't seen the first one so recently, because there were these callbacks that I think would have been more powerful.
This would have been an even, let's say, more powerful film if it was in the mid-'80s, because you don't have Netflix and cable, and on the phone you can't watch the movie an hour before. You have to see it in the theater, maybe rent it, or back in the day when there was a part 1 and part 2, a lot of times, like if you saw Godfather 1 in the theater, you probably didn't see it even after Godfather 2 came out. You saw it once and that was it.
Yeah,
so
and you saw twice in the theater or a re-showing of it.
So we're living in definitely very different times.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, I'm not a huge fan of flashbacks within the movie, especially if we can remember them pretty easy. I guess he's doing it for part 3 here, so every character, Alfred looks at Bruce and he sees the younger Bruce, and Commissioner Gordon has his flashback of putting the jacket on Bruce.
But I think it ties the whole series together,
I think
it really links it all back to the first one, which I think is important, and I think we're not getting the full effect because we just saw the first one.
Right, and it's interesting, you could really actually take the Dark Knight out of this pretty much.
You could, besides the whole Harvey Dent stuff in the beginning. And part of that is because the joke was that movie. He was what made the movie. He is the center of that movie, and unfortunately
tragedy ensued, and it would have been a little bit cheesy and weird if they would have CGI'd his look on some actor's head or something. I guess you could
made
do
some
that.
reference. I like that they didn't even make a reference to him.
Yeah.
Just kind of out of respect. I feel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I respect that.
We had the Scarecrow came back. That was cool to see him.
And the kind of like it reminded me of like the Mad Hatter's court. Like it was on they just had all the tables stacked on each other and the ledgers everywhere. And
very like Escape from New York or something like that. That kind of feeling to it. Okay, let's talk about Bane, because we went in saying, okay, he's going to be a big core of what the success of the movie's going to be. Your initial reaction to Bane?
Really solid. At first, it was the voice was disorienting because it seemed to be coming from nowhere.
It was almost too.
It was too amplified because I think they went overboard. When I saw the big trailer prologue thing originally in the IMAX, I could not understand a single word. I couldn't understand a word of it, and I was worried. So they kind of went a little bit too far in the opposite direction, I feel like. That went away very rapidly.
Yeah,
for me.
I mean, he did have a little bit too much of an echoey thing. It seemed a little bit like this apparatus that he got. Also is like the coolest Michael Winslow beatbox enhancement voice. Google Michael Winslow if you want that. It took me like a couple of minutes to get into Bane, but then that whole beginning of Act 2, that 30-minute thing where he's just, here's what I'm going to do, and this is what I believe in, and you're going to suffer, and Gotham's going to fall. Boom, Bane is and he just destroys the Dark Knight like with no problem.
Breaks him down,
Yeah, and you could believe it. Bruce is kind of being cocky, just rushing into it.
They took a lot of elements actually from Dark Knight Returns, the graphic novel. There's a scene where the older cop and the young rookie, when he goes, "Oh, you're in for a show, kid," that's pulled directly out of Dark Knight Returns, where he talks about how Batman's trying to fight him like a young man. The way Alfred's describing him, like a perfect physical specimen, that's all how they describe the leader of the mutant gang in Dark Knight Returns. And again, that was Batman's mistake. That's how he got beaten by the mutant the first time, was he tried to fight him like a young man.
I feel like Bane started to get lost in the shuffle towards the end.
I agree. Yeah, I think towards the end, first of all, the Talia was a huge reveal. I didn't didn't see it coming at all. And I totally
in the research for the pre-read, that was a rumor going around.
Okay.
And I mean, I kind of predicted that she wouldn't because it just seemed like Nolan was just going to make her just whatever character. But they showed that part where she had the scar on her back. I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
you know?
that had to mean something. I did have that same thought, but then I forgot about it.
I was just too hyper aware because I'm thinking of like, okay, what did I predict?
Again, I'm not a huge comic book person, but I am aware of like Talia is Ra's al Ghul's daughter, and she and Batman did have a thing.
Right.
And I think that actually now in the comic, he has a kid by her or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that the Talia reveal was awesome. I thought that was really cool. And as far as the way they played it, with that was her the entire time and not Bane, that was good too. The only thing, it was kind of a crappy Deus Ex Machina when they had to have Bruce Wayne having the dream about Ducard explaining it.
You kind of got it a little bit.
That was not a very elegant way to put that out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know how else they would have done it. Like, I get that they had to, from a storytelling perspective, they wanted to get that point across, and I don't know any other way they could.
Well, because it was like the guy told him the story of a kid that was born here. And then there was like the rebel rogue guy. You could maybe just kind of visually hint to it and not have to then have it be explained again.
I don't know how you could have inferred that.
One of my issues, so Bane leaves him in this hole, hell hole.
Right, the hell hole.
And it's kind of like a nurturing spa that brings him back to life a little bit. You know, like you would expect that there would be guys there who might kind of give him a hard time. But I guess everyone's old. They've been there forever, right? There's no new recruits being put down there.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is Bane's jail. And it's filled with the cast of Cocoon. You know, it was almost a little bit too easy. I mean, I'm not trying to rip. I want to make everything harder for the characters. I want it to be earned more.
Right. Well, the hell, though, the way you explain it, is that there's the hope.
Right.
That there can be no real despair
awesome.
Without hope.
That was
which is
brilliant.
A brutal idea. That's really.
Yeah. And these guys just keep hoping that they can escape and jump up there.
He's going to do the same thing with Gotham. He's going to give them hope.
And just one thing with Bane, after he takes control of the city, I think at that point, they do this thing where, okay, there's going to be this 3-month timer. And it kind of loses the immediate impact of, okay, well, Bane's got the city. But at that point, we're just going to do Mad Max world and let people rule themselves.
That's the hope that he's giving them, though, because they don't know the bomb's going to go off.
The bomb's going to go off.
So his hope is he gives them this fake illusion of that they're going to... That was the whole side thing about this really weird Occupy Wall Street analog that was going on the entire time, and like mob rule. And like, And then when they pull the rich people out of their homes, and there's that moment, and it's like a very like heavy-handed, like anti-socialism message where Catwoman's looking at the photograph. This was somebody's home. It's like, but now it belongs to all of us. Isn't that what you wanted? Well, it was very much like an anti-socialism message.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But it was just...
They brought that stuff up, and then they... Not that the movie should spend time doing this, kind of showing now... Okay, well, fine. The capitalism fails. Let's just say the 1% crash. So now... Well, what's life like? Everyone just kind of hangs out in their houses?
Yeah.
And like,
right. Well, what are people doing now that there's no jobs to go to or anything?
I mean, if everyone's got control now, I am Bane, I give you control of your city.
Okay.
Well, what are you going to do with it now?
What do we do with it? Yeah. And they didn't really they explore that very much.
Yeah.
They rob, they sack all the rich people's houses.
Right.
And they have like this bizarre court that everyone kind of goes to hang out and scream at, I guess, like the rule of the mob. But other than that, what are people doing with their lives?
Yeah. It almost felt like there were so many ideas and so much that Nolan wanted to cover that he was speeding through things a little bit. There were so many great moments here to cheer for and all these great set pieces and all the images that you wanted. And Catwoman was a great character.
She was. I like the way that they did a very nice way of trying his realistic vision of getting the ears with her little night vision goggles that she would pop up on her head. Like that was smart.
Right.
It was a little ridiculous thing we bitch about Michael Bay and Megan Fox. A lot of shots of Anne Hathaway's leather-clad ass.
And I felt her character had kind of the biggest, let's call it, journey of the movie. Even though it's a very kind of predictable change, almost. It's a Han Solo thing. Is he going to go take his reward, or is he going to come back and help Luke fight the Death Star kind of thing?
Yeah.
And she decides to do that. Alfred leaving early in the movie, what'd you think about that?
I mean, I can kind of see how, from a storytelling perspective, it's what would he do, like in the plot
What's
structure?
What's his function going to be?
Yeah.
So, like, you have to buy, okay, well, he would tell Bruce this because it's a big secret from the Dark Knight.
Right.
And Bruce would be devastated by it.
Here's what I think one of the main points of the movie that I touched on sometimes, which was that you need pain to build character, and to build the suffering builds character, and the idea that we try to avoid pain, it just brings more suffering later. Trying to avoid the pain of telling people the truth about Harvey Dent only created more problems down the road. Trying to avoid the pain of telling Bruce the truth about Rachel only created more problems down the road. So it's this idea that you know, there might be some unpleasant truths that we have to deal with, and they're going to cause some pain. The truth will have its day. You know, we have to let truth have its day.
And Bane was very much, he had this nice little moment when he was talking about, when he starts reading the Gordon letter, this is what's going to bring everything down, this is what's going to set you free and all that kind of stuff. Knowing what's going to happen later in the movie, it's like, okay, well, what do we do with Alfred as a character? Okay, fine, we got to do this. And from the beginning, I think setting up this new character, John Blake, I think the movie starts off slow because you have to establish his character, so there's a couple extra scenes of him.
Yeah, and he's not that interesting a character, unfortunately. He just he's very much a cipher.
He doesn't have a strong perspective.
Yeah.
You know, the characters that we relate to the most here at the beginning were Bane, Catwoman, and even Alfred, because they had points of view that they were fighting for.
And he doesn't. He's just kind of like a cipher. He's a good guy and stands up for what's right and everything, but other than that, he's kind of like a blank.
Like a young Harvey Dent or something, like young character that would pass the mantle, to take the Batman kind of thing. I was a little bit surprised that they went to the Robin thing, because the series has, very early on, Nolan was very adamant that he's not going to make it Batman and Robin. There's not going to be a sidekick. And it almost seemed like this was kind of Bruce's singular journey, and it was going to kind of end with
but like we talked about, it's like, you know, passing on the mantle, though, and passing on. So, and he does. That's, I mean, obviously that's what he's in the cave, and he sees all the bad. That's how we're supposed to take. Even if they don't never make another movie, it's that this cop, this guy, is going to be a vigilante. He's going to be a Batman-like character. So maybe not Batman, maybe Nightwing, or, you know, Robin, or Red Robin, or whatever it is. I was a little, just as a fan thing, it's like they couldn't have just said, like, here's how I would have written the scene. It was, oh, why don't you go by your real name? I like your birth name. I don't want anyone calling me Dick. Like, you know, that's what I would have, that's how I would have written it. But,
perfect, yeah.
You know, but they have to go with Robin, so.
Right.
It's a little more blatant, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing anyway.
In that way, the name of Batman is redeemed because he saves the city.
Right.
So now he goes from kind of the goat to, okay, he's the hero, and now there's that statue, and it's going to be a symbol that here's this dude kind of always there, sort of thing.
How do you like the way they ended with him and Selena Kyle in Rome?
When Alfred talked about his vision for that was a nice touching moment. I liked it the first time when he says, here's my dream for you.
Yeah,
you know? I cheered when Selena kissed Bruce, because they had a nice little tension going.
Okay,
it might have been a little bit forced. I liked her character for him, you know? I don't know. There was something about it that was...
It was, to me, that was a kind of it was unearned. That was kind of forced, I thought, that relationship. I don't know. I didn't buy it.
That's a key word that you just used, earned or unearned.
Right.
Like everything that a character in any story achieves, whether it's internal or external, should be earned through that suffering, through that truth of the pain.
Just in the sense of movie making, the truth of the characters. I don't believe from how they've been together that has created the actual template for...
I feel like she loved him more than he did her. When Bane calls out Bruce as he's beating him, and she realizes, oh, she just betrayed Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
She stole from him. I feel like she fell in love with him.
I can see that because he is like an actual decent human being, and she doesn't know anyone like that. He's the only example of like an actual like decent person.
Yeah, and then now she knows it's Bruce, and as he's telling her in Batman costume, he keeps bringing up this part inside of her that she kind of wants to believe in herself. Was it rushed that, okay, they went off to Paris together or whatever, but she said, come with me. I believe that she fell in love with him. I don't think that he was into the whole relationship, but towards the end, he kind of has those Alfred thoughts in his head.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a scene or two missing where like it could have...
And this is a very minor complaint.
It is.
And in terms of like movie romances, this is fine. I can totally buy it. You know what I mean? Because also it wasn't such a major element of the film either.
Right.
It was, how did you like the fact that he didn't die?
Preview review, I kind of went along the lines of maybe the way that it's been set up would have been maybe Gordon said, reveal yourself as Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. Maybe the mask gets torn off as he's fighting Bane. Everyone sees it's a human being. Because there's that battle, can a mask inspire? Because if there's a mask on, it's almost, it's like a supernatural guy. I'm not capable of doing that. But if it's Martin Luther King Jr., if it's Gandhi, if there's a human face, then that kind of puts the responsibility on the people that are seeking to be inspired. Okay, that's a person doing that, so I can do it. Bruce's vision of wanting to inspire, here it was, we're introducing a totally new character, which is almost kind of like telegraphing, well, this character's got a big plan for this movie. You know, he's going to go somewhere in it. I was surprised, even though it was a kind of a hero, it's Iron Man taking the nuclear bomb. But as it's happening, I'm getting emotional. Batman's going to say, no, Batman, don't do it. Like, drop it, get out of there. And so as soon as it blows up and I thought he was dead, I was sad, man, he's dead. But then this great emotional resolution. A screenwriting teacher once said, if you can wrap up a solid emotional resolution in 3 minutes, the audience audience will forgive 90 minutes of shit. You know, like if you really tie it together, not at all saying that this was anywhere that there's any shit in here at all.
No.
If there's any kind of slow points, Bane falls off with his viciousness
Right.
and stuff.
The third act and the last bit of the third act specifically, yeah, it was really powerful. And I thought that he died. And I think the movie would have been stronger if he did die.
Okay.
I think having him in Italy was a little bit of a cheat. Like, I understand they're kind of the whole like autopilot thing was kind of a tip off the entire time if
Yeah.
you're thinking about it. Like you cut to Tony Stark when he was you cut to his face.
Right.
Cut to Batman, cut to thoughts of his mother and father, cuts of
Right.
that photograph, all his memories from the first his face, and then the explosion. And then at the end, you have Michael Caine in Italy, and he thinks he sees Emma, but it's just somebody else.
I guess you could interpret this maybe it's like the Inception ending, you know, is it real or
Yeah.
not? Like, is Michael Caine really seeing Bruce Wayne there, or is somebody else?
I think we're supposed to infer quite clear that it's
you
real.
know, I think this went for the very happy, clear ending. Part of the reason I kind of was thinking that maybe Nolan would really go kind of, let's call it balls here, you know, off the wall, kind of left field. He said he doesn't want to do 100% comic book faithful adaptation.
Right.
This is the end of his trilogy. He's not going to do Batman. So maybe he's going to treat it as a closed universe. This dude, Batman, didn't go on and keep fighting for 50 years. And
Right.
nobody else took the mantle. This is this story of Bruce Wayne, and it ended with this. Yeah, I like the idea of the elemental Batman, which went back to Batman Begins. But I mean, it could have been finessed. It could have been tweaked a little bit more in terms of, you know, some more inventiveness. But I think emotionally, the score just really picks your emotions.
yeah.
The score really just attacks you. It just makes you, you're tearing my guts apart. That whole ending really it came through, wrapping everything up with. And then Gordon finds out that it was Bruce, and that's a nice emotional
that was a
touch.
nice little emotional touch, definitely.
It's all those emotional touches. I think that the opening part of the movie is a little bit slow because you have to introduce all the new characters and relationships.
Right, and again, it doesn't help that Joseph Gordon-Levitt is boring most of the movie. He is. He's not an interesting character most of the movie. I just don't think.
I think he's noble, but he's a bland kind of noble.
He's a blank. There's nothing specific about him.
We learn, okay, he's an orphan. He has that good scene with Bruce.
Yes, that was a
the
good
best scene.
speech. Yes, the best. Yeah, about how the look, about faking like you're smiling.
The anger in your bones.
Yeah.
And I wish it would have carried through a little bit more. He's
That-
basically saying, I know you're Batman.
Yeah,
right?
that was way too quick and way too convenient. That was because I saw you that one time and you looked like you were hiding because your parents died. So obviously you're Batman. Like that's a
Yeah.
huge leap to make. Like,
Nolan tends to be very ambitious with everything. I feel like there's some kind of shortcut answer sometimes. Didn't the leg brace? Just throw the leg brace on. Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
Lucius Fox. Here's this advanced thing. Gonna give you straight. Because then he kicks the bricks.
Right.
Like, you just put a
bionic.
brace.
You give him a bionic brace,
yeah,
basically.
like bionic brace, but like your ankle and your feet are still regular. And you just kicked you know, so personally, I would have loved to have seen maybe a moment or two more. Because I know Alfred gives him the speech, you're not the young man you were. You're not in the shape that Bane's in. Batman's like, take me to Bane.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, they're already going to fight Bane. He was just so cocky, but he seemed so frail when he had the cane. So that transition from cane to bionic leg to Batman in the suit, he's been a recluse. He hasn't been working out. He hasn't been training. You know, what are those steps?
it would have been just from cinema junkies to have that one of those good like cliche like getting back in shape
Well,
things.
like-
you know what I mean? Like a
But
montage.
some kind of mix of like, I don't want, you know, Rocky running through the snow, but like some kind of, you know, it could just be like look of determination on his face, or
Yeah.
he says something to Alfred, we know he's going to get his shit together,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Earned, you know, I think there's just some connector moments that might be kind of going a little bit too quickly, because if you ever feel not necessarily bored, but kind of, oh, things are moving smoothly, that's usually a sign that maybe there's not enough dramatic conflict coming from.
There's times where I definitely felt on the edge of my seat, and most of it happened in the third act. I'll tell you this. When Bane started blowing up the city,
Oh my God.
that was like I was watching a real terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Is what that felt
Scary.
like. It's scary.
Scary.
It was legitimately scary.
And just the great shots wide, you see all the smoke coming from the ground.
Just all the things blowing up all over the city. That was terrifying.
Terrorizing idea of using a football game, and then that's broadcasting his message, and then
Yeah.
he kills the guy. That's right after that little introduction of all the characters. Bane gets going, boom, 30 minutes of it's moving so fast. And then there's a lull. Basically, Bane takes over.
Right.
Until we kind of get Bruce out of the prison. That middle part right there
And
is
it's
kind
not
of a little
kind
bit of a
of
lull.
again talk about like plot leaps. Like how does he get back from there again if he has no money? And
I'll wrap it up in my blanket.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
I'm Bruce Wayne. I've done this before. I
Right.
can, you know, I can
Nobody
do it.
seriously. Yeah.
Then he got into the city. I've just been in prison. But here's the clean your life the USB drive. The nitpicky little connections. Are we just trying to find something to complain about, or is this good enough kind of thing? I feel like I'm always looking for I want everything to be just like a shoelace that's super tied. It's a little bit loose. Tell me a movie this year that's equally as good, okay, so we have Avengers. That's some good company to be in. That's some great company.
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods. Joss Whedon. So Joss Whedon, Christopher Nolan. If you guys can direct everything,
yeah, exactly.
The world will be right. We're already over halfway through the year. There's any other movies that are at this level, it's hard to find. This is
especially in terms of a giant comic book blockbuster. In terms of what kind of movie this is, it's an amazing accomplishment to have something this well thought out and executed and dramatic and moving and character based.
Right. It's definitely what we want more of. I think that since we just sat through Begins and Dark Knight, we kind of have that super high expectations.
Now that we did that, I almost wish we had just gone in having not seen the first two right before it, gone in a little more cold.
Because I feel like Dark Knight especially, it's so just tight in terms of this happens. There's no lull in that.
No, it's just go.
And the Joker, see, I think by having Talia show up, then it kind of switches. Bane kind of stops being the main focus, and it's not it's not about his. Like, it was the Joker the whole time in The Dark Knight, and it's his objective, and he's always talking about what he wants and why he's doing
even when
it
switched to Two-Face, it was still mostly the Joker. You know what I mean?
Two-Face is a toy of the Joker that he's using against Batman.
Yeah.
He's controlled. He's like, I beat you. I destroyed what you were hoping was going to redeem you or whatever.
Right.
But here, Bane...
Even though I just showed you that the people of Gotham showed you their true colors.
Sorry, let me try that again without the voice cracking. They're true. Do you have holes? If anything could be tightened here, it would be keep Bane more ferocious, because it's almost like it's a cool way Han Solo shooting Darth Vader out of Luke's path so he can shoot the final shot when Catwoman comes back and shoots Bane into the wall kind of thing. I would have liked to have seen Bane, Why I'm Willing to Die. You can't have these scenes where, whenever there's a scene with Alfred or back in the day with Rachel, those were the scenes when we got to know what Batman's going through, whoever's talking. Here's why I care about it. Here's the pain I feel. And here's what I need to earn. With so many characters and so much that you want to do, it's very tough to have these moments so we're anchored with everyone. I was expecting maybe a little bit more bigger action set pieces. Was there not enough action in here, or did it...
It felt a little, compared to...
With Dark Knight?
Dark Knight, yeah, it did felt a little light on the action, I guess. It did. I mean, there's still definitely stuff going on.
Yeah, but from the previews make everything seem like...
of course. Here's an interesting thing. It's a silly thing, but like the sound mix and a little bit like when Bane, he kills two people by snapping their face. And both times, like, they cut away too quick. Like, we didn't feel it. Like, we didn't see it. We didn't hear it.
Right.
When Catwoman and Selina breaks that guy's hands by flipping over him, they cut away too quick. We don't hear it. We don't, like when Batman, and we talking about in the beginning how Batman begins, the action's all very quick.
Right.
In Dark Knight and this, like, you hear every thump, ferocious thump. And when he is in the interrogation with Joker, when he slams Joker's head, you hear it, you feel it.
Yeah.
Those moments, like those things where Bane killed people, and like I didn't feel those.
When he was fighting Batman,
I felt that.
You felt
yes,
it.
Definitely.
But everything else was kind of light, like when he's like, "I'm Gotham's reckoning," and he just does something.
Yeah.
And you cut away from it. Yeah.
You cut away too quick, and we didn't have the sound on it either.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was just an editing thing.
And I wanted to mention that even after Batman Begins was that having watched this at home the past couple weeks. In the theater, man. In Batman Begins, there was like that part where Bruce grabs the knife to pretend to cut the guy's head off. Mm-hmm. You could hear the leather outfit that he's got on, and you can hear the floors creaking. There's something really to be said to being in the theater, and just you really get that full sensory experience.
Yeah, with a really good sound system and really in the full screen.
Yeah, I mean, it just reminded me of, like, you know what, seeing this on the big screens, like, there's some movies you got to do that for. The home experience is fine, but it's really just more powerful and totally engrossing.
Yeah,
I think that these are important issues we're bringing up. These things would have brought it even to a higher level.
The critics, and we're sitting here just picking nits because we have this really high standard of wanting, if you see that something can be fixed, why wouldn't you want it fixed?
Exactly.
A great movie, again, solid B+.
Right.
Initial reactions, Dark Knight, like A+. Batman Begins, A-, B+ for this. Name me any other superhero trilogy that's had that good a rating. So
that comes together like this.
Yeah, that comes together. Again, this works actually again like a first act, second act, third act structure. This does work as a whole unit, which is
a rare thing.
A rare thing.
We have to be thankful for.
Yeah.
And it's totally satisfying, totally joyous, and thank you, DC. Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers, DC, and Christopher Nolan, and all the writers, and they really brought together a special cinematic experience.
Each movie is so unique, though. They each have a different feel to them.
Yes, that's a great point.
They all feel like very different films. Like
Yeah.
Gotham is different in each one, it feels like, and just Nolan's ideas and his vision of what he wants is different in each one.
The visual of Gotham and the tone reflects kind of where the characters are at in each. And this scope here was so much bigger.
This is the first time we involve the rest of the world. The government, the United States
Yes.
government is involved. The federal government's involved in this one. Like
That was a
there's
good
an
point.
outside world outside of Gotham.
It almost felt weird at first.
It
'cause was
did,
like,
yeah.
Okay, what's
Oh.
this room over here? This control room everyone's watching from
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, so it was cool to see that it was the bigger picture and we have, Gotham, we haven't abandoned you kind of thing.
Yeah.
One
And if it
last-
sounds like we're dragging here, it's because it's quarter to
It's
4 in the
almost 4
morning
o'clock.
and we've
Yeah.
been sitting in these seats
I
for
think
9 hours.
fine.
Well, here's the other thing that made me think of it, is that Ra's al Ghul's plan usually involves Ra's al Ghul living through it.
Yeah.
Whereas their plan involves blowing themselves up with a nuclear bomb. You know
Why
what I
does
mean?
Talia want to kill herself?
Well, Bane would have died too. Bane,
Yeah.
it's a nuclear blast. Anyone
I'm
in
gonna
the city
sacrifice
dies.
myself too.
Yeah.
It's like, then why drag it out? And when you drag it out, you basically trade the tension of the timer for potential drama between the characters and a more immediate threat made by Bane and those characters. Once they take control, they just trade out more drama. They're like, okay, we're not going to stress out too much. We're just going to let this timer kind of, I don't know. I'm trying to find the structure, like how, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so
tired.
this will be edited down. I'm tired
Yeah,
too.
it's-
Go see The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, sure, go see it. Why, if you want to, I guess. You should
Yeah,
go see
you
it.
know that. You know.
Go see The Dark Knight Rises. The people of Gotham have shown you their true colors. And they want you to see The Dark Knight Rises. But StoryCorp, will they pay attention? This is something that we were talking about earlier. Which you were saying why Transformers made so much money. But Dark Knight Returns. And what was going to need to happen for Dark Knight Rises to match up with Transformers 3. And my point, keep in mind that it's 4 in the morning as we're doing this. The movie preview critic. My point, what you are not taking into account, is the foreign box office that drives so much of StoryCorp these days. That yes, you can have story and character and dramatic tension, but the people of Gotham, by which I mean StoryCorp, all they see is dollar signs. And they get dollar signs from Bahrain, from France, from Germany.
You see, Batman, the foreign box office is gonna bring down your Gotham because they don't care about story. You think your Christopher Nolan, your White Knight, is gonna bring drama back to Hollywood? It doesn't matter because I've created foreign box office that just cares about spectacle. I've won.
We're gonna be doing this dance forever.
The movie apocalypse.
You can't stop anything.
Well, we're gonna try. We're gonna try with this. We're gonna try. You do better.
We're gonna show you that the people of Gotham, the movie viewers of America, care about story, care about character.
They will rise up.
They will rise
and
up.
they will look at you. And as one unified group, they will say, "Long live
good movies."
All right. Let's call it. Let's call it. It's 4.
It's 4.
All right. So until next time, consider yourselves advised for The Dark Knight Rises.
And as always, long live good movies.